Let's talk Washington Capitals. The Caps are a team that started off real hot. It was them and the Bruins in the East, and they were up by a mile. And then they both kind of slid back, but the Capitals, to really a greater extent, let everyone else kind of catch them. They ended up getting passed by Tampa. But they're still third in the East. They're still a very strong team. What do you guys think of the Caps? Let's start with you, Zach.
Yeah, obviously this is another deep team that could definitely win the Stanley Cup. They've done it before. I just don't know about. Actually, no, they're pretty solid to me. Daniel Sprong's a solid guy. Yeah, they're pretty solid. They got some depth. I don't know. Do you guys have anything you want to touch on about them?
I mean, for me, is how in the world does Ovechkin keep scoring so many goals?
Yeah, that's true. How old is this guy? Oh, he's 34.
He's 34.
He's always younger than I think he is. Always.
Yeah, 34.
Because he's starting to go great. Yeah.
Pretty old to win like the
To have a
Rocket
40 goal year?
again.
Yeah,
Right. It's unreal.
48-goal year. It's like, dude.
in a shortened season.
So is Kovalchuk still on the roster? He's not, is he?
He is.
Oh, he is. That's interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, and he looked decently well with Washington. Not like an absolute superstar like he used to be, but I mean, he came in and proved that he could be like a third liner.
Okay. Yeah.
One guy that I really liked from this season though is Jacob Vrana. I think he took a humongous step forward and kind of became like a verge star in this league, and that's kind of something that the Caps needed. With some of their players aging, especially like Holtby's not necessarily like the goalie that he was in the past. I think Samsonov is kind of their starter going forward here. I don't know. Billy might actually have something to say about that. But
ooh, yeah. I think that Samsonov is the better goalie between the two. But I'm curious to see who they start this year. I think it'll be Samsonov. I think he's proven enough that he's the better goalie. I think he's one of the best. I think he might be the best young goalie in the NHL. If you're talking about that conversation between Samsonov, Shesterkin, and I know Sorokin hasn't made it into the NHL yet, but kind of those three Russians.
Carter Hart.
And also Carter Hart. I think Carter Hart might be the little bit better, but Samsonov real close for me. I think he's a star in the making right now, and I think he's going to be their goalie for a long time.
Yeah, that's definitely fair to say. Really quick, did you guys hear the news about Lars Eller?
I did not.
So he's gonna leave the bubble. I think it's like August 14th, because he has a child that's expected to be delivered.
Oh,
interesting.
And the protocol on getting back into the bubble is extremely crazy. He has to pass like 4 COVID tests.
Yeah.
And it could turn out that he has to wait like 2 weeks, like just in quarantine, having to like re-enter the bubble.
Interesting.
But
Dang,
I mean,
so
if I was
he'd be
waiting on a
leaving-
child, then I would definitely probably be leaving.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
True.
yeah. I mean, definitely. Like, hard to blame him. Feels like the right decision to go
Yeah.
meet your child as he's born. But
yeah.
I feel like that's a pretty easy one there. But yeah, that's a guy he'd be leaving right towards the beginning of the first round. Might make game 1 of the first round, it sounds like. And then that would be, I guess, if depending on when his child is born, if he came back, he'd be coming back sometime around the conference finals if they're there.
Yeah. One guy we have not touched on yet is John Carlson.
Oh,
Norris
my
winner,
gosh,
hopefully.
yeah.
Well, probably. I don't know about
I think
hopefully.
he's definitely
he's-
the favorite.
He's probably a lock, in my
I'd be
opinion.
surprised if it was anyone else.
Mhm.
Whether or not it's deserved.
Oh,
That's
he
another thing.
racked
I feel
him
like-
up. I think it's deserved.
Yeah, but the Norris is the best defenseman. It's not the best
See, this-
offensive defenseman.
Right.
This is kind of the thing.
And
with
it
the heart
always
that-
goes.
okay.
Well,
That's the
it's
thing.
supposed to be the best defenseman,
Right.
but it is the best offensive defenseman.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Carlson is
Well, not
not
necessarily,
locked for
because,
that.
Zdeno Chara's won it. Victor Hedman's won it. So,
Yeah, but if you're not the best offensive defenseman, you've got to be really, really good on defense.
Yeah.
right, and that
Like
happens
it's
a lot.
definitely weighted towards offense.
I mean, if
But
there's like a
all
crazy
these
guy
guys,
like
though,
Kevin
are
Carr
still-
or John Carlson season, then yes.
Well, yeah, and all these guys are still like Hedman and Chara are still putting up pretty absurd points, playing like absolutely stellar defense.
Right. I guess.
And
Yeah, you'll never see a guy with 20 points win it.
no.
Okay, that's fair.
No matter
that's
how
a fair
good his
point.
defense
50,
is.
60 points. But then, I mean, Carlson's defense is, for lack of a better term, kind of shitty sometimes. But he has proven that he's like a remarkable offensive defenseman. I mean, dude, 75 points in 69 games played. He was probably on pace for 80, 90 points as a defenseman. Like
That's crazy.
Pretty crazy.
I mean,
So,
you don't see point per game defenseman very often.
no,
True.
No. So
And a guy I want to touch on a little bit that everybody hates unless he's on your team. I think he would make a
Wilson.
fantastic ab. Tom Wilson. Yes. This
Yeah.
guy
Yeah,
is definitely
we
an
got a
X
rat
factor.
on the team here.
This guy can put the puck in the net too, so I think
he can,
like
man.
he's a surprising player. I love players like this, and I know he'd be a fan favorite here for sure.
Yeah. He just plays with the grit, and he turned out this year that he's just like decided, I'm going to play some offense.
Oh,
Let's
yeah.
get her going here.
He just turned it on. We're like,
Yeah.
oh,
He's got 21
this guy can
goals
score.
in 68 games this year. Like he
Yeah,
was a
that's-
goal
dude,
scorer. Like not
And
no kidding.
like you were saying, he plays with an absolute edge to
Yeah,
his
he
game.
does. I love those kind of players.
Right.
Dude, same with like Radko Gudas.
Yeah.
Mhm. You need something
Go
like
ahead,
that, especially just on.
Yeah, to win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
can't just
you do.
rely on just star power. You
Like, our
need
player like
these
this.
guys.
Our player like this is Matt Calvert, but I'm just saying
Yeah.
Tom Wilson can put the puck
Yeah.
in the net and play that style. So
Mhm.
it'd be great, but that's probably just fantasy.
That it's kind of interesting because like those guys relied on so heavy back in like the 80s and 90s and
Right.
like early 2000s, and now it's like
This is like the new age of that
Not-
player, a guy that can play with that edge and put
Yeah.
the puck in the net.
a Matthew Tkachuk.
Yes,
like Brady
exactly.
Yeah. So, like, because dude, in order to survive in today's NHL, you have to have some skill and be able to, like, keep up with the speed of everyone else.
Mhm.
And I feel like Tom Wilson, like, the Kachucks, like, that's part of the reason that, like, I think back is, like, fell short, like, fell out of the league so hard. And, guys, who am I thinking of? Oh, like,
Reeves.
Ryan Reeves is okay.
kind of like
He's still here.
Lucic.
Yeah,
I mean, but
Lucic
Reeves is
and-
kinda
Lucic,
like
definitely. Yeah.
That's a good one.
I don't know. Reeves is like an interesting.
Reeves he brings that grit too. He's a valuable player.
No.
He's
He's definitely
that grit
valuable, but
hard.
yeah.
He like only brings the grit though, but I feel like
Vegas needs someone like that. I don't know if he would
Yeah.
work on a different roster, but the Lucic example,
I think that's
like
a
he
good
just
one.
fell off so hard.
Mhm.
back is, and then Kessler is another guy I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Just kind of plays that, and then there's also probably something to be said about them playing that super physical type of game, and then it kind of wears on their body a little bit,
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So that's probably a pretty fair point. But at the same time, actually, like all those guys that I just kind of mentioned were, other than Reeves, I guess, were pretty solid on the offensive side of the puck. So I don't know. I guess it's just like playing that physical can kind of just deteriorate your body a little bit quicker.
Definitely, it's it's very effective. It'll shorten your career definitely by a little bit. A couple other guys that we haven't talked about is their 1-2 punch at center, with Kuznetsov and Backstrom, and this is I mean, this is a team. Their best players on the wing, but this might be one of the better 1-2 punches you have in the NHL as far as your centers. I really love both of these guys.
I do too. There's nothing really else. I mean, dude, Backstrom is, in my opinion, a future Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And then Kuznetsov is just really dynamic. So, TJ Oshie too, dude. We haven't touched on him. Like this
Right.
team is, they're pretty freaking deep too. Is the thing.
I got kind of a hypothetical
yeah.
question about Nick Backstrom though. So
Uh-huh.
let's say the Caps never won a Stanley Cup. Is he still a Hall of Famer?
No.
Yeah,
I don't think
I
so.
don't think so either.
I don't know, man. I mean, he's averaged a point per game his entire
Oh,
career.
okay.
And you
I didn't know that.
There, I think it's a little under than a point per game now. I could be wrong.
He has
do you
956
think-
games and 927 points. So
He's
pretty,
close.
just a little under.
Pretty much right at a point per game. And there's something to be said about him being Ovechkin's like consistent, setup partner
Yeah.
for the duration of
I
his
was just gonna
career.
ask you, do you think playing with Ovechkin helps him into the Hall of Fame, or do you think that might be a little bit of a ding? You know, kind of the same way that people are talking about Draisaitl and the Hart Trophy.
I feel like it helped
Which way
him
do you think that swings?
because I feel like it helped him because if they, like I said, did not win a Stanley Cup, I still think Ovi goes to the Hall of Fame, but not Backstrom.
Yeah, definitely.
So I
I
think,
kind of think they benefit from each other, though.
yeah, clearly, but Backstrom more than Ovechkin.
I mean, I don't know, man. I feel like Backstrom is one of the most underrated players in the league and has been for a long time, just based on the fact that he's always been under Ovechkin's shadow. I think Backstrom was drafted the year after Ovechkin, year or two after. He was drafted 06 and Ovechkin was drafted 04, because that was another player that was drafted in Johnson's draft. Sorry, but bust. Anyways, yeah, so 2 years apart, and Ovechkin didn't enter the league until 05, and so he's always been riding like Ovechkin's shadow. But he's always been there, can score some like timely goals, and we already know about his passing.
Right.
I think he like sneaks into the Hall of Fame if they don't win a Stanley Cup, but I think for me, for my vote at least, I think he's a surefire Hall of Famer now.
I would agree.
Yeah, definitely. So let's get into our verdicts here. Karim, why don't we start with you? Contender or pretender on the Capitals?
I think you got the OV factor. They won a cup 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I think just based off of that, and everyone's kind of starting off kind of fresh, I think they definitely can contend. I mean, the East is way stacked, so I can see an early exit, but I also see them being able to. I think they're a very like mid-top team in the East right now.
I agree with that.
You're not Tampa, but you're not
The Islanders.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go contender here. Definitely not one of my like absolute favorites, but it would not surprise me if they went on a run. Something that, like we touched on, to keep an eye on is the goaltending situation. Holtby had a pretty abysmal season in my eyes. So if Samsonov can come in and be that spark that they need, this team could be pretty scary.
Yeah. I'll go contender as well. Yeah, middle of the road contender. It hurts them losing players like Burakovsky and Grubauer, obviously. So without them there anymore to provide a little bit of offense, so middle of the road contender.
Yeah. Okay. This is an easy contender for me. I think that I'm actually surprised. I think I might be a little higher on them than you guys are. I think that they're 5th or 6th best team in the league. I think they're the 4th best team in the East. I think that they absolutely could make a run. They did it 2 years ago. They've got a lot of the same guys. They've got the key pieces still. This is at the beginning of the year they were real hot. If they can come off this same off season the way they came off the last one, they could make some noise. And I definitely think this is one of the better contenders in the league. So it'll be fun to watch them.
Really quick. And if I'm like considering like a top contender, it's probably like my top 3 or 4 teams.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily
Okay.
match that definition for me, but I do think that they're like a really solid contender.
Yeah, definitely.
And I love the
Yeah.
Capitals. So, but still, like out east is just an absolute like.
Oh, absolutely. I think this is if they were out west, they'd be the 2nd or 3rd best team, and they're in the East, so it's 4th or 5th.
Yeah. So. That's my only thing. It's just going to be hard to get out of the East. But, I mean, with this roster and they like them getting that monkey off their back a couple seasons ago with the Stanley Cup win, dude, like they're a team that's primed for another run.